Here's why it's dangerous to keep draft horses in the summertime. Flies. They make them run to you so that you'll swat their flies. And they start expecting it. We gotta watch this. This is how I protect my garden. See that one strand of highly visible polywire on these portable plastic posts. Those posts were $2 each, and that wire was 20 bucks for a huge amount, more than I can use. So that'll keep out deer, it'll keep out dogs, goats, and it'll keep out, well, it depends on the level that you put it at, as long as it's not touching vegetation. If you wanted to keep out a woodchuck, you just lower it. And you can use multiple strands so that you can keep different varieties of animals out. Like if I wanted to keep woodchucks and deer out, I'd have a lower strand and this higher strand. Because you want to get them right about in the chest so they'll feel it, and it pulses so it won't kill them. Even if they're totally touching it and wet feet and all, they're going to not get electrocuted because it pulses. It only shocks for a second. And the great one that I have, the good energizer that I have, is from Gallagher, and it's the best they make. It was also the first one ever invented, and he invented it to keep his horse from messing up his fancy car. And I think he's from New Zealand, but I got the Gallagher S100. It's a very, very good one. I had some American-made ones, and they're not really as serious about the electrical output and making them tell the truth, so to speak, like they are in some other countries. And I really like the Gallagher because, like I said, I've had many varieties of energizers and they really didn't work. So don't skimp, get the Gallagher. It's worth it. My Gallagher is about 3 years old or more. It's kept my beehives safe when I need it. And see, once they get shocked a couple times, the animals that live in the region learn that that wire is something to stay away from, and they don't mess with it. Now, if you're trying to keep an animal inside a wire, that's a little different because, you know, you get hungry or terrified, you're going to get out of anything. Rain could make them want to run through the wire and try to get to shelter. Just all kinds of things. When you keep an animal confined, it's harder to do than just keeping an animal out of something. I have completely destroyed the desire for the deer to come back and eat my crops, because when they see that, they're going to say, uh-oh. They're used to that because I use that around the place. I had some problems with my horses getting into the moso bamboo and eating that. Animals love bamboo. Every animal does that eats grass loves bamboo. And so I had to put the fence around that. So the deer already know this and they already stay away from it. But I'll only leave it on for a little while, and even if I move the energizer after a few days, they'll still see that wire, and I've got that wire in certain areas already set up. So I just have to pull up the little ground rod, which is on a T-shape, and move the energizer. I just had to stop and tell everybody that's beekeepers. This is the best plant you could ever get for beekeeping. It's Vitex negundo, not Vitex agnus castus. Do not get that. That does not work for bees. This one here, I've got the Agnus castus, and I have never seen a real honeybee on it. But anyway, this one already starting to bloom, way ahead of Agnus castus. And this will bloom all summer. I don't know of anything else that does that. It'll bloom until frost comes. And it's just about to bloom. The blooms aren't much bigger than that. It'll be little blue blooms. Some of them are a little less blue, some of them are more white. But there will be covered in bees, and from the looks of it, since I've had this many years, I've got a lot of these shrubs, it's going to be blooming in less than a week. And once it's blooming, the bees will always have pollen and nectar from this plant. It is the bee plant. I've also got other bee plants that are supposed to be famous for bees, and they are not very good. Because none of them bloom more than a week. And what good is something that blooms 1 week and it's dead for the rest of the year? This is a continuous bloomer. Black locust isn't any good. BB trees, also known as, they're Corea and Evodia. They only bloom a week. That's a BB tree over there. It's not even blooming. When it does, it's not got any more bees. Oh, it's about to bloom. but it's not like Vitex. This bloom here will not last more than a week or two. Yeah, this one's about to bloom. Some of my other trees, my other BB trees aren't blooming yet, but see, there's a bloom coming on. And now it's no better than Devil's Walking Stick or Aurelia. None of those others get any more bees than this. So I was so excited about them, and I'm not anymore now that I've had them for 10 years. I've got them all over the place because they're very easy to propagate. So is the Vitex. Just plant some seeds and they come up in a week. They're great. I got them coming up all over the place. Well, here it is. This is the garden, and I'll tell you what I did. To keep the deer away from everything, I've got this electric fence. As you can see what it is, it's called a Gallagher S100. And what's good about it is it has a way to test the battery. That's green, that means it's good. And when it's red, it doesn't mean it's not working. It can be red, it just means it's not absolutely 100% charged. And so that means that as soon as you get a chance, you need to turn it off and you need to let it sit in the sun. And usually in the daytime, nothing's going to get in the garden anyway, so you should charge it during the day. And if it's been cloudy a long time, it'll be red, but it'll still work for many, many, many days as a red thing. And you don't want to put this in partial shade. And number one, you do not want any vines or any plants or anything touching this fence wire. And it's always good to use a colored wire or a white wire, not a regular metal wire. They need to see the wire so they know what to fear. So I got the poly wire. It's very easy to use. You can tie it in a knot. You can tie it together. If you have to, you can cut it and retie it when you want. It's just like string. Really, really works. And so what I like about the Gallagher is it has two settings. It has the livestock setting, which uses very little energy because it only blinks once every second or so. See? It gives the animals enough time to get out if you're trying to confine them, so that's not good for confining animals. So it's also not good when you first turn the fence on. That's what you use when they're used to it. This is what you use now. This one, the livestock mode. See that? Snap, 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 snap. More than one a second. It's really fast, so they don't even have time to cut through without getting shocked. So this is the way you keep it right now, because I just put this up today. Like I said, I've had this thing for, I don't know, 3 years or so, maybe longer, Anyway, this is what's awesome about it. I'm going to turn it off because I often get shocked by it. This little ground rod right here, it's very easy. I push this in by my own hands. It's about 3 feet long, and you just shove it in, and you clip on the ground to it, and that's grounded now. And then you don't want the ground wire here that's green touching the red positive hot wire. So now that it's grounded, you just clip that to the wire. It's very simple. If you have any questions about these things, I'll answer them. It's very, very simple. Oh, and another thing, when you're done using your string, just hang it in a bag. Let me make sure that's off. Yes, hang it in a bag like that. And as long as it's not touching the ground, it's fine. I just hang it in the bag. So now I've still got over like 1,000 feet in there. And I don't like to cut my wire. This wire's not been cut. I just rewind it and on the same spool, and then that's all I needed. It's the cheapest way to go, and it's like a lifetime investment if you take care of it. I've taken care of it, and the only thing that's ever happened to me is this plastic clamp, I think they call them leads. This plastic clamp, the plastic came apart from the metal, but I just used JB Weld and put it back on. A year ago, one of them came off on that side, and then just a couple of days ago, this one came off. But now they work. It works forever. It's more stronger than it was when it started. But there you go. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back on. I'm going to keep it on the livestock mode where it zaps real fast. For the first few weeks, for the first week, I'm going to keep it on the livestock mode so that all the animals in the area that come to eat in the garden will all get a good shock. They won't have time to get through without getting shocked. And after a week, they'll all know that this is here and that they can get shocked if they come through. So what they're going to do is they're going to stay away from it. And then I can turn it down to livestock mode where it only blinks every second and doesn't use any juice hardly at all. And then I'll turn it off most of the time, and then I'll even take the charger off, and I might put it in other areas where they're causing me some trouble, where I have more of these little wired fencing things. And it took me all of, no lie, 3 minutes to put up the whole thing. 3 minutes. And we got 100 feet rows. They're actually 130 feet. There's a 130 feet rows here. So I know that from that post all the way to the end of 130 feet. So it's simple. Might as well show you what I got. There's loofahs growing all along the side. Cannot forget and touch that fence. I do that a lot. Cucumbers, tomatoes. Nobody cares what I got. Anyway. Trying to teach you guys how to keep the deer away and not get upset with deer. And this will work. Stell's Evergreen corn. Oh, I found out something about corn that might be interesting to some people. Of course, I have the smallest amount of viewers there ever was. No advertisements, no money to be made. I don't want any. And I don't. So I'm not paid by Gallagher. I'm just telling the truth. I don't beg like all the other freakos out there. I don't beg for money on my channel because it's not really anything for that. I was going to teach you guys about something. I started these corn seeds indoors. Before the springtime came, when it was still cold outside. And I found that the kernel itself molded and rotted and the plant didn't use it. By the time I was ready to plant the seedlings, there was no kernel attached to them. I was worried they were going to be stunted. They didn't even need the kernel. I put them in the ground without the kernel, and every one of them grew, and I didn't expect that. And that's one reason why I put them off to the side of the garden here, so I thought they weren't going to make it. But you can see this whole package of Stell's Evergreen made it, and it's from transplants. So that's great. And as far as bugs, there's usually a BT, a bacteria, Bacteria thuringiensis strain that will attack any bug that's bothering your garden. It depends on the strain. If you have a beetle, I would recommend spinosad. If you have a caterpillar, I recommend azawai or Kerstocki. These bacterias. I would never use a chemical that hurts mammals and humans. I've noticed on all things, even garlic, if you call it a pesticide, they will say, oh, dangerous, must use this kind of equipment, must be protected. That's to level the playing field because the chemical companies run the USDA. They will try to scare you to death even using something that's not harmful, like garlic spray. If it's called a pesticide, it'll have the same warning label on it that the most deadly DDT would have. Well, not DDT, they don't use that anymore. Of course, they used to use DDT to spray neighborhoods for polio, believe it or not. They were so crazy. The government did that. Look it up on YouTube. Even with the algorithms, you can probably find that. Anyway, see the scarecrow? Yes, my friend told me, get a scarecrow. That'll scare away the crows. The crows were actually eating my purple hull pea plants just before they came up. And the scarecrow worked. I had to put this plastic bag on his hands because it moves with the wind and makes a rattling sound. I also gave him a little cooler with a styrofoam in it so that it'll rattle and lightly move with the wind when the crows try to land. It's not all that fancy, it's just a pair of coveralls over a hose stuck in the ground. I put some shirts that I wore out here so the crows would see me coming out working in the garden. I took my shirt off and came back and left the shirt on there, so it looks like I'm still in the garden to the crows. At least that's the way I think it works. Okay, this is a very long video. I gotta shut it off.